Welcome to a review for our Chapter 4 through 6 test for accounting. The first thing you'll want to do for this review is log into Moodle and go to the Andrews Mowing quiz review under the quiz section. When you click on that, you'll see that you got to complete this general journal, general ledger, and worksheet using these transactions. Those are both links. That first link opens up a spreadsheet. And on that spreadsheet you've got all three things you need there: the general journal, the general ledger, and the worksheet. And then the transactions are a Word document. And on the bottom of that you'll also see the chart of accounts. So the first step is something we've done before, something you've seen before. You should know how to do a general journal, enter transactions into a general journal. So take a few minutes and do that. Now I'd stress here that it's really important that you enter these correctly, because if you don't enter them correctly on the general journal, then you're going to have problems in your general ledger and later problems in your worksheet. That doesn't mean we can't fix them later on, but if you do it correctly the first time, it'll save a lot of work later. So for instance, that first one, it says deposited $1,500 into Andrews Mowing Lawn Service. That'd be the owner doing that. So our cash account gets debited because our cash account increased. I should put the date in there. It was June 1st. The document number is B1. I'm going to leave the reference blank for now. I'll come back and I'll put that in after I've transferred stuff into the general ledger. The amount was $1,500, and the credit goes to the capital account. So hopefully at this point you're pretty comfortable with these transactions. Go ahead and fill those in. Pause this video if you need to and come back in just a minute. Once you have your general ledger finished, the next step is to, once you have your general journal finished, the next step is to post those things into the general ledger. I'd start with your cash account, and the important thing here, of course, is to transfer your balances into the proper column. If it's a debit, you put in the debit, and the credit in the credit, of course. So on my general ledger for my cash account, on June 1, I had a debit of $1,500, and because debit is the increased side, is the normal balance side, that means my running balance is $1,500. Well, now that I've posted it, I'd come back here and I'd signify that I posted it by putting the account number in that reference column. So then I look for my next cash transaction. Looks like on the 2nd I had a credit of $40. So on the 2nd, a credit of $40. Credits in the cash and assets, of course, are the decreased side, so that would bring my balance down. Now I can actually have Excel calculate it for me, so I'm going to do equals my previous balance, and just so that I can copy this formula down, I'm going to say plus any debits minus any credits, because now I can copy that formula down and it'll kind of keep my running tab going. So anyway, I did that one. I would mark that I've done it. The next one is a debit for $40 on the 3rd. So 3rd, $40, and notice it keeps my running balance going for me. And then I go back to the journal, mark that I've done it, find my next transaction, and so on and so forth. So take a few minutes now and perhaps pause the video and fill in your general ledger. Now that we have our general ledger finished, the next step is to transfer these balances to the worksheet. Now, a couple things that I should point out just to make sure you got these right. On your general ledger, make sure that your increase side is the proper side, that your normal balance is the proper side. All these should be positive numbers. So for instance, for the sales account, the normal balance is the credit side, and so when we have a credit, that increases our account by, in the case of June 2nd, by $150. For the accounts payable, the credit is also that increased side, so we had a credit of $1,200, and then we had a debit, which was the decreased side, so that brought it down to $900. So anyway, the next step is simply to transfer these balances to the worksheet. So for instance, cash has $1,170, so I would bring that over to my trial balance, $1,170. My equipment, let's see, gotta scroll up a little higher there, balance is $1,320. So take a second, transfer those over, and make sure, of course, you put them in the proper column, whether they are debits or credits. Once you've transferred your balances over to the trial balance, you'll need to total up each of those columns, and they should add up to the same amount. So I've got $2,730 in both of those columns. My debits and my credits are equal. That means I've probably got things right. If those numbers are not equal, it probably means I messed something up along the way. So I'd have to go back and check. Now, if I was off, say I was off by $80, the things I would look for would be a transaction of $80 that maybe I left off, or I'd look for a transaction of, say, $40 that I put in the wrong column. I put as a debit instead of a credit, or the other way around. If I'm off by something that's divisible by 9, that probably means that I just switched 2 digits, and so I should go back and look for something where I switched 2 digits. So I've totaled those up. The next section is for adjustments. If, for instance, my equipment, I spent $1,320 on it, but it's not worth this full amount anymore, I might need to make an adjustment. If I were to value my equipment today, say it's only worth $1,200, well, then I need to make an adjustment, and I would need to credit my equipment by $120 to bring the value down to $1,200. So I'd put in an adjustment, and of course I'd also have to put in an adjustment under expenses. It's possible I'd have a it's possible, darn. There we go. It's possible I would have a separate expense item for like equipment expense or depreciation. I'm just going to put it in expense because I have this fairly simple spreadsheet, and I labeled both of them A just so that they so that we know which one is with which. Then we have to start transferring our balances over. There was no change to my cash account, and my cash account goes on my balance sheet, so $1,170. My equipment is now worth only $1,200 because it was $1,320. We credited $120. Accounts receivable is still 0. I'm putting these in the wrong column at the moment, so let me fix that. Didn't even realize I was doing that because those are still debits. My accounts payable is a credit. No adjustments needed there. Same with my capital, and my drawing is one of those where debit is the normal balance. Then my income summary, the sales and the expenses, those are going to get transferred over to the income statement. So I had $330 in sales, and I had $210 now in expenses because I took that depreciation expense there. Now I've already got formulas in that automatically populate these things, but what we're doing is we're totaling up our adjustments. We totaled up our debits and our credits in our income statement. We did the same for our balance sheet and debits and credits, and we found that our credits on our income statement were greater than our debits. In other words, we had net income, so we put that balance there. If we had had more expenses than we had sales, then we would have put a net loss under the credit, under the income statement, and we would have transferred that balance to the debit side of the balance sheet. But as well as we had a net income, so that gets recorded here, and under the credit side, under the balance sheet, and when we add these two together, we see that they both equal 330. When we add these two together and these two together, we see that those two are the same as well. And that's what your worksheet should look like. Hopefully this helps you for that test. Again, it's great if you can do the worksheet, it's great if you can do the general ledger, but if you can't put stuff into the general journal properly in the first place, it's going to be messed up in your general ledger, which is going to mess up your worksheet. So if you have any questions about any of the general journaling stuff, I would highly recommend going back and looking through some of your notes, or looking through your textbook, or looking at any of the other old videos. Thank you, and good luck.